Hey there guys, welcome back to Anthony Vlogs, where Anthony Vlogs. So I've got a bit of a different video for you guys here today. Normally I don't have too many different guests as opposed to maybe friends like Kirk or maybe my girlfriend Ray. But we've got something pretty totally different on here with me. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi guys, my name is Matt. I'm the co-creator of the original English language shonen style manga, The Immortal Red Fox, Volume 1.
So if you guys have followed me on Twitter or Instagram, Anthony Lantern, you guys saw me. I was talking about this book that I just picked up, which you can pick up at Amazon right now, Volume 1.
That's right.
It's like $12, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pretty cheap book, considering what you're getting. It's pretty awesome. I'd say what you get, is what you paid for. It's pretty neat. So if you saw there, I posted about this book. It's a pretty cool collaboration. It's got some interesting art from a lot of different people. But really, it all comes from your mind. Is that correct?
Yeah. It's like you said. It's got a bunch of different people involved in the project, but it's all up here, and it all started up here. Actually, right where we're sitting right now. So
there we go. We're sitting on history right here.
Yeah.
So as far as the Immortal Red Fox, you kind of got the helmet here. It's very obviously inspired by Super Sentai and shonen, like you mentioned earlier. If you could summarize, and which you do get a summary in the book as well, if you could summarize what this book is, what's the idea behind it, just in a few words.
So the idea behind the story is a foreigner living in Japan thrust into this world where he has to keep the balance between the real world and this dark mystical element of ancient Japanese demons that are coming back to reap the world for souls, our souls.
Right.
So, and the title, the reason he's the Immortal Red Fox is because he kind of has a Groundhog Day element in it, where he dies in battle constantly and keeps coming back, and most of the time has to start his day all over again.
Yeah, and I will say I really enjoyed that about the book. You throw in a lot of ideas in the book, like real quick. It's sort of like, boom, here's the world, here's how it works. This is going to be fun, and I kind of like that because one, if you're a fan of this stuff already,
right,
you've been through all this. You know the rules.
Right.
You know stuff about, like, if you're a fan of these kind of either American comic books or especially Japanese, in this case. You're familiar with the typical sort of, in ancient times we had a warrior,
right.
We do all this stuff, and like you said, the reincarnation thing,
right.
It instead of trying to bog you down with those rules, it just jumps right into the comedy, it jumps right into the action.
Right.
We get to know the people as opposed to, having to worry about the rules in place.
Right.
And I enjoyed that for it. I really did.
Thanks. I didn't want to muck it up with too much detail in the beginning. Because like you said, if you've watched Super Sentai and Tokusatsu and lots of these shonen style anime and manga and even a lot of American comic books, you have a working knowledge of the way a lot of these stories are going to go. So really to just hit the viewer or the reader with some bullet points so they say, okay, these are the quick rules, we'll get to it later. And I think it's good because it raises some questions for the reader, but nothing to the point where it's confusing.
Yeah.
So that makes the reader want to read more and know more, and it's a lot of fun for me and Archer because we get to kind of build the world as we go. We have this groundwork laid out. So. Yeah.
So as far as moving the world forward, is there an amount that you guys know you're going to get to? Are there seeds that you've planted that you're running to? Without telling too much, obviously,
right.
It's still in the process. We don't want to give away everything. But like, how far have you thought ahead with this?
We've kind of figured all the way up to 3 volumes so far.
Okay.
We obviously want to keep building on the villains. My personal experience with this genre of Super Sentai and Tokusatsu and stuff like that is some seasons we have these awesome villains, and then sometimes we just get these goofy, much ado about nothing kind of villains, right? And we're kind of building towards a bigger villain. In the first issue, we just see a monster, the first monster, one of many, and the idea behind it is every time a monster comes into play, the more souls that are captured, or as the death toll rises, this dark overlord becomes more and more powerful and will eventually resurrect. So we want to get to that point in our storytelling and definitely have some things go bad for our heroes.
Right. Okay.
So, and as far as expanding on some of the other characters, I think the relationship between the Immortal Red Fox and the original Immortal Red Fox, who's now reincarnated in a 10-year-old child.
Something like Case Closed or something similar to
right,
that. Yeah.
That relationship is going to grow and become a lot funnier, and I think that we'll be able to relate to both of these characters through that relationship. And we've got some other heroes that we're going to be expanding on. We have 2 other side stories in the works right now, and we'll hopefully talk about one of them quite a bit more in his own story over the summer.
So, very cool.
Yeah.
There you go.
So
now, this series is very humor heavy, I'd say. You know, the kind of way when I was thinking of it, there were certain lines of dialogue that reminded me, and this will be into a follow-up question later, it reminded me somewhat of like an abridged series. You know, something like Dragon Ball Abridged or Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged, where some of the dialogue is just straight up acknowledgement of how wacky and zany the world is.
Right.
Now my question is, now with the humor being such an important place of it, and this character has the ability to reincarnate at pretty much any point, where do you find the tension will come from mainly?
Well, what we're looking to do is... Let me backtrack.
Okay.
As far as Super Sentai and things like that, the fandom relies on wanting to know about the powers and the weapons and the devices and everything like that. They want to know how it all works. So in our next Red Fox story, which is going to be a side story also coming out over the summer, we're going to explain that a little bit. So the tension is going to come from, number one, he doesn't just have this infinite amount of lives.
Okay.
So we're going to learn a lot more about that, and we're also going to learn that every time he dies in battle, it's not like, oh, okay, cool, there's no consequence for me. He's actually draining life from Hiro and from Miyobu, who are both mentor-type characters in the story. So every time he fails a mission, he's draining power from them because they're trying to keep him strong and keep him in the fight because he's the only one who can do it.
Right, okay.
By serendipity.
Very cool. Yeah, because I mean, it was one of those things where, like you said, you're building this world, you're wanting to raise questions, you're just kind of, we're just starting off with this. And I mean, a big part of the character, of course, is the, you know, fish out of water. It's the, what if you were a, you know, a superhero? What if you had to not only be foreign in this land of Japan, what if you were foreign in the world of superheroes? Right. And I like that about it. You know, that seems to be really, really interesting on there. And so, kind of mentioning stuff like the abridged feel of it, and of course the very heavy influence from the stuff that you've mentioned before. Was there anything in particular that you felt was the main influence, or was there something where you're like, that sparked the idea or anything?
Well, I always, as you know, I love this Super Sentai element, right? I grew up on it. You know, a lot of us, we got our start with the original Mighty Morphin back in the day, and
there you go.
And for me, it was the same thing. And then, you know, I like the idea of mangas, but I was always more of a fan of watching and reading these one-shot formats where you get it all laid out in a relatively short format, you can understand the world, and you don't have to buy, you know, 50-something, you know, 100-page volumes.
Right,
and fill your shelves and never know if you're ever going to finish a story or not. Right? So that's definitely a big influence for me. And as I said, growing up on you know, even before Power Rangers, it was Ultraman, which might be a little bit before your time.
Right.
You know, and a lot of Hong Kong action flicks and Godzilla movies and stuff like that, and go into flea markets and finding bootlegs on VHS and stuff like that. And, you know, in the Japanese culture, the red hero is always like this super strong, but can be goofy sometimes. We're seeing that more nowadays. You know, and I wanted to take that and put a spin on it, make it funny, and try and do something a little bit different with it. But I would say that the tokusatsu and the one-shot style manga format were the biggest influences. And it started one night when Archer and we had talked about doing a book for a long time, and we were watching. I said, you would really like Kamen Rider, and she's like, this is Power Rangers. Well, it's not Power Rangers, but that's what everyone says.
Right, of course.
We watched some of the darker stuff, which has kind of a horror element to it. We watched Kamen Rider Amazons, which you should check out. It's super awesome. And then, we're like, well, what if we did this in a comic book? Because I'd never seen a tokusatsu-style hero really, really in a comic book format, especially in an original English language manga format. So I thought, well, that would be kind of cool. Plus, when you do it that way, you don't have to just make movies. You can have an endless visual effects budget if you do it in a comic book format.
Absolutely. I mean, like you said in the very first volume, you have a giant monster with tentacles and everything, all sorts of going on. So you're able to just do whatever your imagination can really allow.
Right.
Which is awesome, I really have to say. So obviously, and you can kind of see here, and if you're familiar with Super Sentai, a lot of the big stuff in Super Sentai is the teams.
Right.
And you mentioned how the Red character, who we have here in the Immortal, Red Fox, is mainly your strongest, your best. Are there other colored heroes in this universe, perhaps?
Well, okay, so I'll give a little information. So we know that we have the Immortal Red Fox, as you said. In Volume 1, we meet a character who's a Japanese professional wrestler. He goes by the name of Brown Wolf Hyperspeed. We don't know really where he ends up.
We just know he's his rival as of right now. He sees him on TV and he's like, this guy.
I don't like this guy. Right. But we're going to expand on him more over the summer. And I just announced it in an Instagram live video, so I'll talk about it now. But it's kind of a tale of redemption of what happens to this character after the events of Volume 1. And that's going to be called the Immortal Red Fox Hyperspeed Zero. Okay. And we'll get to see some changes to the Brown Wolf Hyperspeed character, where he ends up becoming more of an ally, where he can actually be a real part of this fight.
Right, okay.
As far as a team, I keep getting Instagram followers and stuff saying like, hey, when are we going to get some other characters, some other colors, or like somebody just said to me, oh, the Immortal Yellow Bee.
Yeah. so things may not exactly pan out as people may expect, but the ideas are there. You're thinking about it, you're building it.
Right.
Okay. So.
I mean, do I see us going and having a 5-color team of characters? Probably not.
Right.
Most likely no. But I do like the idea of one of my favorite things in watching the original Mighty Morphin and Super Sentai and all of these things is when that 6th hero shows up.
Right.
Right? Because he's always slightly different. He's always got a slightly cooler look to kind of refresh the audience.
Sell toys.
Sell toys. Definitely sell toys. Big time sell toys. So I'm looking to do that with Hyperspeed Zero.
Okay.
And we'll get, like I said, without giving too much away, he's going to have a couple of different looks too, which will be, I think, really, really cool.
Awesome. That's exciting.
Yeah.
Now, of course, this is a passion project. This is completely independent. You know, this is straight from the ground. You're building it.
Right.
Now, for people that maybe have passion projects, they want to kind of make their own comic book or even cartoon or whatever.
Right.
Can you tell us about a bit of the process over that and what it took or advice that you may have for future people?
Number one, the advice is if it's something you really, really want to do, is just stick to it. Stick to it, and you're going to make mistakes. Things are not always going to come out perfectly. There's going to be mountains of frustration, but if it's something that you really care about and it's something artistically that you want to get out to the world for them to see, really just dig your claws in and stick to it. As far as the process, I think the process is different for everybody. I had never done a comic book before, and you know me. I love comic books and I love all this stuff. So it was kind of a learning curve. And I'm not the best artist in the world. I storyboard everything, and it starts with me pacing and walking around and talking out loud while Archer sits at a keyboard and types, and then we do storyboards, and went out and found some great artists who could do the job better. and tell our story visually for us with our scripts and our storyboards. So, you know, I think that there's an avenue for everybody, whether you're a writer, whether you're an artist. The best thing that you can do is, number one, network. Number two, love your characters. Number three, don't give up until you can get your vision out there. And most of all, surround yourself with good people and help them to love the character too.
Right.
And that's something that has kept us going, because there are now artists in the Philippines, in Japan, in the United States, some of who you know. Our fight crew is local. All of our suit fabricators and stuff like that, we're getting pieces from our costuming for our live action stuff from all over the world, and everybody involved loves this character and thinks it's a lot of fun.
Right, okay.
Because it has something that I think brings back childhood memories for a lot of us. I mean, who, you know, even when, you know, people were like, oh, it's not cool like Power Rangers, you watched it anyway.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're like, oh, I watch it because my little sister watches it. Now you don't.
So
no,
come on.
You're lying.
That's okay.
So,
and luckily, you know, we kind of live in an age where that's becoming more acceptable.
Right.
Obviously, you know,
yeah, it's cool to not be cool.
Yeah, in a sense. And you know, you're talking about, oh, everyone's so passionate about this project, and that's one of the things that I've always found is really helpful for me getting attached to things. Like, for example, writers like Jeff Johns for DC Comics. Mm. One thing that I've always admired about his is that he'll take a nobody character. Mm-hmm. Like, he'll go, oh, you don't like the Metal Men? Yeah. Well, let me show you why you should like the Metal Men. Right. And kind of demonstrate them in a way. And it sounds like, you know, that's how you're kind of treating your baby here. You're taking the fox and be like, hey, this is it. And from the sounds of people are getting it. That's cool.
I hope so. And yeah, I hope so. Maybe one person at a time, but that's totally okay. And yeah, I think you know, doing your best to keep your characters as relatable as possible, even in a crazy world with demons and giant squid monsters and colorful spandex suits and immortality and all that stuff. You know, I think you can still find a way to keep those characters relatable and, you know, just keep building and stick to it. Yeah.
Very cool. So you talked earlier about the live action stuff, which, I mean, I don't know if you know these guys, but I was a little bit a part of. So I've seen that a little bit firsthand, but you've done some action sequences, you of course did the promos with me. So what is the idea and goal behind the live action stuff? Because obviously someone could just do a comic and have a comic. Right. But you seem to be going pretty much at all angles.
Well, I like the idea of the mixed media thing, number one. Because you can't always just go and you can't individually put a book in someone's hands and have them look at it and be like, oh, okay, I like this. When you take something that's real and in motion, I think as people and fans, people get more attached to it. It becomes more tangible that way. Right. And like I said, it plays on the fact that we're invoking these memories of when we were kids and when we were like, oh my god, colorful suits and monsters and you know, karate and whoa, you know, laser blasts, right? So number one, I wanted to do that. Number two, I think that indie tokusatsu is something that's growing. Now, a lot of people don't necessarily know what that is. It's Japanese live action with the use of practical and special effects, typically with spandex-clad action heroes. And one of the biggest inspirations behind that was a friend of mine who lives in Tokyo. His name is Bueno. He's got a company called Garage Hero. You should check them out too. Okay. Working on a big production right now called Strega. And he's been a huge asset for us as far as walking us through getting better at filming our action sequences and stuff like that. And I just think that having something like that where it's tangible really helps make this whole thing seem real, right? In a way. There's a huge community of Japanese local heroes, and they all look like Power Rangers and Kamen Rider and stuff like that. But they all have a purpose, and they all have an individual town that they protect and promote. You should look that up. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm not aware of that. Sounds awesome.
Yeah. So, you know, I wanted to take that local hero feel too, and I think that we're hitting the mark on that so far. And then, you know, down the road, I would love to see these live action shorts tie in more to the book, and that's what we're working on now too.
Okay, and that was going to be my next question, is where exactly, how far do you see this going? But yeah, it seems like you truly want to integrate this as much as possible.
Right, yeah, definitely. I want to see, you know, you get a preview, and then, you know, you got to go and read volume 2 to find out where it goes. And then when volume 2 ends, that's maybe where the action shorts will pick up again.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So they kind of all interconnect, where you have to touch on all the media to go and get the full picture. So.
Now, do we have a window possibly for volume 2? When that's going to be?
Volume 2 will probably not be done for at least another 6 months.
And I mean, volume 1, you know, is just now hitting people, so
right.
Obviously we can definitely, you know, try to wait for it. But okay.
Yeah,
so
I mean, we have the side stories that are going to be coming that are being worked on now. Each of those will be about 20 pages a piece. Okay. Those are going to be in full color, and we're going to give those away for free.
Okay.
So, you know, it'll be a digital download available on our website and some other comic sharing websites. So those will tide you over for sure. You know, we want to make sure that things are getting better and progressing, and the world is building but not getting too out of hand.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So a lot of the times we write something and we scrap it and we start all over again. So, but yeah, as far as volume 2, it's going to be a little bit. It's not going to be crazy long where it's going to take another year, but it's going to be a little bit.
Okay, I get what you're saying. Now, of course, you just launched your GoFundMe page.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
The GoFundMe page was something we set up so we could get the content out faster. I think we live in a world now where, you know, if you can't click it and get to something within a few clicks, you're done and you move on. And I don't want to see that happen for people who care about this character. So right now we've set our 2018 goal for $1,500. You can go to GoFundMe.com/TheImmortalRedFox and make a donation that way. And if we hit that $1,500 goal, we're going to be able to give you all 4 of our product goals for 2018 much faster, higher quality, and for absolutely free. So you'll get an action teaser, 2 action shorts, so 5 product goals. Teaser, 2 action shorts, and then the 2 full color side stories. One talking more about Red Fox after the events of Volume 1, and the Immortal Red Fox Hyperspeed Zero.
And we're talking multiple projects that you're going to be working on constantly throughout the year. I mean, to be honest, 1,500, that's not a whole lot.
It's really not. It's really not. I mean, for one individual person, yeah, it's a lot. You know, and it just helps us, instead of waiting paycheck to paycheck and saying, okay, well, we can buy the gloves for the suit this month.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or we can buy an SD card, you know, to film some more stuff, right? It just allows us to go and say, okay, let's get everything knocked out, and then we can just release things in waves. And plus, that way we'll be able to get some more merch out to people, and some new shirt designs and stuff like that. We have plenty of that already, but you know, who doesn't like cool stuff that you can wear and support your favorite characters?
Exactly.
So.
And I mean, you've already kind of proven yourself to say, hey, we can make this happen. We're not just going to take your money and disappear. We have a product. We're wanting to push it further. Your goals are realistic. Your projects are realistic. You're trying to, you know, actually do something. Because in this day and age, it's definitely hard to kind of find the right projects, because even like huge video game creators, they get so much money and then a game comes out, or maybe even doesn't come out, and it's like, well, where'd that money go?
Right.
Meanwhile, you, like I said, you've proven that you can release a project. You are wanting to do more with this.
Yeah.
And I think that's definitely one of the easier things to, as far as your project goes.
Yeah. I mean, it's all done right here. You know what I mean? And there isn't a day that goes by where we're not doing something to move the project forward. So, yeah, and just to keep people loving the character and reading the stories and watching the videos and wanting to know more. I love that. I love it. Getting questions on Instagram and social media and stuff like that. I just really, really enjoy, particularly this fandom, because I think the fans are really, really cool. And they ask a lot of interesting questions that you're like, well, maybe we should address that. So, but yeah, it's a tangible goal, I think, for us too, that $1,500 mark. And like I said, if we hit that, we'll be able to do some really great stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I think on our way out, you mentioned, like you said, you get questions on Instagram all the time.
Yeah.
You've got a website. Why don't you just go and tell us, where can we find you? Where can we go support the Immortal Red Fox?
You can go to www.theimmortalredfox.com. You can follow us on Instagram at Immortal Red Fox and Facebook at Immortal Red Fox. Don't forget to sign the mailing list when you go to the website. You can check out our crowdfunding campaign at www.gofundme.com/theimmortalredfox. Help us hit that $1,500 mark. And The Immortal Red Fox, Volume 1, the original English language shonen-style manga, now available on Amazon.com and CreateSpace.com.
Well, there you go, folks. Well, man, it was great talking to you.
Thanks a lot.
Very happy to be here.
Appreciate it.
Like I said, support independent creators, because without them, we wouldn't get anything else.
See you next time.